We're going to ask let's see, Chief Allen, will you please say the invocation and the pledge, please, for us?
Now, this is the second day in a row that you just talked me off.
You're the kind of guy.
Anything for you,
Yes, sir,
anything
thank
for you.
We're trying to send you a message.
You are, you are. May we please stand, please, and bow our heads. Dear Lord, we come together once again as a corporate prayer, asking that you just watch over us. Be with each and every one of us as we go through this meeting. Lord, be with the words that we use, be with our minds, but most of all, change our hearts so that we have a loving heart to love one another and love you, Lord. Lord, continue to bless us and keep us as we go through this and remind us that we're doing your work, not our work. We're doing your work, Lord, not our work. I want to repeat that. Lord, continue to just watch over us and keep us healthy as we go through. This is our prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Phoebe,
Present.
Art,
Here.
Jackson,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Kirby.
Here.
Alrighty, we will start with the agenda items we acted upon if they meet the guidelines necessary to perform essential minimum functions of the governmental body or a matter necessary to respond to COVID-19. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Kirby. Do I have a second?
I'll go with it today. Aye.
Mr. Jackson, second that. And roll call, please.
Phoebe,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
Jackson,
Aye.
Hill,
Aye.
Kirby.
Aye.
5-0 vote. This
We only have one thing on the agenda today, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm good.
All righty. Then I will open this up, and I'm going to ask council number one. I know we have lots of folks here wanting to speak, some emails and things like that. I'm going to open it up to council. I know we took a lot last night. What council's desire is for that tonight?
It's my recommendation that you hear anybody that wants to speak, and let me say this, it's normal that before we act on anything that they have a chance to speak at the prior work session, and they probably don't know that. So I would make this an exception where anybody that signs up may have already signed up and there was some confusion earlier. So probably need to take a minute and see if anybody says that they wanted to speak.
All right, then we do have some emails. Would you like the emails as well, printed out or read? Stephanie, you can read those,
I
maybe,
can read the emails or we can get them printed out.
whichever's
I'm happy to have them
convenient for
read.
you. Any other discussion on that? Mr. Jackson, do you have a point of view?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, Ms. Hill?
No.
No, what? I'm not quite sure. No,
Oh, I
nothing?
thought you said you had any questions.
Oh, no questions? Okay, and Mr. Ard? Mr. Ard, any questions? Okay, he must be cooking right now. Oh.
Council President Beebe, this is Herman. I'd like to share two things
Yes, sir,
before
go
you
ahead.
begin. All right. First item, I would make two suggestions to change this ordinance that was presented last night. These are just kind of cosmetic. But the first one is on page 2. It talks about government buildings. I would put in front of that city government buildings because that's the intent of the ordinance is to impact our government buildings.
What section, Herman?
Not, it's on page 2, number 2 at the top, face coverings in public places. It's A under A.
Thank you.
And it just says city, just need to add city government buildings.
What is
And then the
your,
other suggestion,
It's 2A.
what is your
yeah,
other
2A, yes.
suggestion?
all right, the other one item is, all I'm doing is updating, the state health officer issued another order today, so all I was doing is updating from, this is 3H. 3H, it's on page 3 of the ordinance. And all I'm doing is suggesting that we change the May 21st, 2020 to June 30th, 2020, just to update it and keep it current. And that's the two changes I would suggest.
I do know that Mr. Harris was on the phone with State Health Department workers about an hour ago, as of an hour ago. Do you have any results of that conversation, Herman?
No, I don't know anything about that, I'm sorry.
Are there any other decisions today that were put out by the governor's office or the state health director?
That's the only one I'm familiar with, is the one that he issued this morning, June the 30th.
Which was, if you could give us a summary of that.
Well, it extended the safer at home order that was issued on May 21st, 2020, that was to expire this Friday, July the 3rd at 5 p.m. He extended it until July 31st at 5 p.m. It just extended the same order. There's no evidence of any change to the May 21st order other than that. It just extended that particular one.
Okay, it's been extended 1 month. Okay, thank you for that summation. All right, and I will read the resolution 17279 as I did last night, adopted by the City Council on the second day of October 2017. And these are the rules for addressing council. Number of speakers will be determined by the City Council President, and I have opened that up to other City Council members tonight. The limit is 3 minutes per person. We do have a clock down there that will sound when your 3 minutes is up. Persons may speak once per issue until everyone has had a chance to speak. Sign-in is required to speak. No profanity, no personal attacks that are unrelated to issue of public interest, and last but not least, no personal promotion of businesses or ventures. So with that, I think we had some confusion on the BOZA sign-in sheet and the sign-in sheet for this evening. If you would like to speak, Chief Allen, will you come get this and take this to the back, please? And if you would like to speak, if you could, tell you what, let's just pick one of those and have the people sign that. I will go ahead, Stephanie, go ahead and read some emails if you don't mind.
Okay. This one is from Candace Coate from 1508.
Stephanie, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Let me try this way. Candace Coate, and she resides at 1508 15th Avenue Southwest in Decatur. The idea of political persuasions having a tiny fraction of sway in a population's response to a disease is disgusting. It only impedes the necessary actions and reactions, only divides a populace that should stand together. More than ever, we do not need to allow the voices that attempt to divide to succeed, but rather only open our ears to the sounds of conquering this together. This is an abject failure on those we have chosen to lead us in preserving our safety and security. In reference to point 1, this pandemic is deadly and spreading at a rate that is alarming to anyone that has paid attention to the numbers. This could have been stopped. The resounding failure is again placed on those referenced in point 1. This can be stopped. It can be slowed to a crawl and possibly halted by the practices suggested by the CDC and the Decatur City Council. This success relies on one thing, us, the collective. In all times of dire straits, the collective is what has been able to rise up and come to the solution, not the individual. While this flies directly in the face of the idea of rugged individualism, it is the only way this will be beaten back, the only manner in which it can be subdued. For those that are dismissive of these ideas, who think that freedoms are being removed or who wish to play the hoax game, I only have to simply ask you to think of others. Truly and unequivocally, place yourselves in the reflection of others for a moment. I will not tug on the heartstrings listing people. We all know who these measures could protect. Please do not adhere to measures suggested only to prevent punishment, but adhere to them to prevent calamity. What is a community if it does not protect the weakest of the herd? What is a family if it does not shelter the frail? Perhaps when this has passed, we can revisit those to blame. We can condemn and point crooked fingers, but now is not the time for that. Now is the time to truly band together, not as a nationality, not as a race, as a species, as a herd, to confront the disease that looms over our heads. Please, for yourselves, for your family, your friends, listen. Thank you and have a good night. Let's see, this email came from Deanne Mealy, Bank Street Merchants. Let's see. Dear Paige, I'm writing on behalf of several downtown merchants to express concern about the mask ordinance you and the Decatur City Council are considering passing to help control the spread of COVID-19 in our community. While most of us support your leadership as it pertains to this issue and the guidelines you're about to set forth, there were some potential issues mentioned at last night's special session that gave us pause. Basically, as business owners, small businesses, we were alarmed by the council's response to a fellow merchant regarding the enforcement of the ordinance should it pass. The specific business owner inquired in person as to how he was to enforce compliance in the case of a non-compliant patron. The council told him that it would ultimately be the business owner's responsibility or face a rather hefty fine. Hopefully, the council will consider the possible issues that could arise given this type of policy. How can a business owner be expected to assume the role of a police officer in such an instance? The most we can do is post the ordinance and remind patrons that masks are now mandated inside public places. If they refuse, we cannot be expected to bear the burden of removing a person from our property ourselves. Given the less than lawless times we live in now, we are quite concerned for our safety and that of our employees. In fact, several of us employ young people to man our businesses in our absence at various times. Given what the council indicated last night, the failure of an employee to remove a non-compliant patron would result in a fine to that business. We simply cannot put ourselves or our employees in such a position. Additionally, negative press and social awareness of such would most likely affect our business's ability to generate revenue. Please do not let the smaller businesses in the heart of our community fall through the cracks in your decision to regulate the general populace. Big box stores that were never required to shut down have resources beyond that of the little guys. They are able to employ security to handle potential issues that may arise. We simply are not. And it is signed by several of the downtown merchants.
Who are they?
The names are Deanne Mealy, Bailey Copeland of Cloud 9. Deanne Mealy is Deanne's Art Studio and Gallery. David Armistead, Tennessee Valley Pecan Company. Andy Dye of 810 Antiques. Jamie Hood, Linda Hood, and Justin Smith of Jamie Hood Jewelers. Sheila Motley, Bank Street Arts and Antiques. Tracy Roberts McCann, The Studio on Bank. Christy Wheat, Synth McGee's. Marla Odom and Jamie O'Brien, Threaded Boutique, and Leanne Underwood, Behind the Glass.
Thank you. Do you have any more? I will address that one personally. I'm not sure that was, I've never supported that business owners would, if we mandate this, that they would remove someone. That's why we have the police to do that if that ordinance were to go through. So
By law, they couldn't.
yeah, let's make that clear. That would then violate them and encroaching on someone else's personal security. So that would absolutely be a police decision if we even go forward with this. So let me make that very clear. I would recommend no business owner try to take action. I think that's what 911 for our police force. But that's just my comment to that one. But go ahead. And I did not address the business owner last night. So
Okay.
if you're going to address the word to me, I didn't address the business owner. But go ahead.
This one is from Christy Smith. As a local business owner and a Decatur citizen, I do not agree with a mask ordinance. I have a degree in both biology and chemistry and have extensive medical and pharmaceutical training. Masks lower our body's SpO2 levels while causing wearers to breathe in their own CO2. I encourage all of you before making a decision to measure SpO2 level using a pulse ox both with a mask on and with a mask off. I am pregnant and have a lung disease called
You're good. That's fine.
which was caused by growing up with a pet bird in my room. In addition, I have pregnancy onset tachycardia, which combined with her other issue often makes it difficult to catch my breath. I medically cannot wear a mask. I refuse to further lower my SpO2 levels, putting stress on my unborn child just to make others feel safer. I cannot think of a single place in the city of Decatur in which people cannot maintain a 6-foot distance between one another. Although the ordinance does contain a clause for people such as myself that cannot medically wear a mask, I fear we will still be fined. I don't find myself and others I should have to waste precious time fighting a fine in court, which would include having to provide personal medical records. I would like to add that the fact that the Alabama heat, where heat strokes are already a common concern, it is not feasible to force people to wear a facial covering. According to the CDC guidelines, the cloth and homemade masks are not substitutes for surgical masks and N95, yet both surgical masks and N95s are to be reserved for healthcare professionals. A mask made by a bandana or t-shirt is not going to prevent the spread of the virus. Therefore, there is no logical reason for people to be forced to wear them. Why mandate an ordinance that scientifically isn't going to prevent the spread of COVID-19?
That all you have?
Histoplasmosis. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is that all you have right now, Stephanie?
Let's see.
Chief?
Yes, right now it is.
Both sheets or?
Both sheets.
Okay, then we will start with this one here. Catherine Buse, please, yes, Ms. Buse. If you'll come to that microphone over there, please. And again, you have 3 minutes once you start, and thank you. And I'm sorry, let me
Go ahead.
first. If you come to speak, you need to at least say your name and your address for the council, please.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
My name is Catherine Buse. I live at 2306 Rockingham Lane. Thanks for allowing us to speak. First, I want to say that this ordinance is highly unconstitutional. That should not even have to be spoken because that should be clear to those who are actually participating in this government. But it is incorrect to require people to wear particular dress, particular article of clothing. And so this is an overstep and overreach into our personal freedoms. If a business wants to require it, they should be free to do so. But to then pass this as an illegal measure that you will be charged with a crime, with punishment, we then have to stop and think about how we're going to enforce that. Anytime you put laws and rules in place, it has to be something that can be enforced. Are we really going to expect our police department to spend their time chasing down people who have taken a mask off momentarily to speak so they can be heard, as has happened in this room right now? Is it going to be at a restaurant where you take your mask off to eat food? Is it going to be at the park when I'm with my children riding their bikes? Are we really planning to charge people like this with a crime? That we're going to have the police come and throw people out of businesses because they have chosen to have their personal freedom by not wearing a mask. Unfortunately, we've reached a time in our culture where nobody understands personal responsibility, but that's what this type of issue is take personal responsibility for how you want to respond to this. If you are more susceptible to this, then you should take the protective measures to either not go places, to wear a mask, to do things to protect yourself. But to then levy this as a law, as a criminal charge, how are these even going to be prosecuted? So we have to follow this all the way through to its logical conclusion. Is this even enforceable? And when you do try to enforce it, what is that going to look like across this city? Are we really going to have our police officers, who I love and respect and who do a tremendous job in the city, having to cart people out of businesses because they've taken a mask off so that they can talk to the clerk? How is this going to be enforced is the big question. I'm deeply concerned at the suggestion that we're going to turn citizens against one another, to report their neighbors, to report their friends. That is a horrible position to be proposed by our city leaders, to further divide this city into finger pointing over something that's not a criminal action. The other question is, when would this be lifted? There's nothing in place that tells us how long this would be in effect. And we all know once a law is put in place, it's nearly impossible to get it off the books. So are we going to further encroach on personal freedoms by continuing through laws of this effect, because this is going to set precedent? And unfortunately, we are so blinded in this culture that we think precedent, though it's wrong, we still follow through with it. And so there needs to be something that says, how long is this going to last? At what point are the numbers of this disease, of this pandemic, of the survival rate, of the death, whatever numbers you're looking at what point would this ordinance be lifted? Has that even been considered of when this would be taken off the table?
Thank you, your 3 minutes, I
Thank you.
appreciate your time. I can answer that. And if everyone would like to speak, we're not gonna have this, if everyone would like to speak, we can stop it now, or we can continue on with the speeches from everyone. Now, what I'd like to say to that is, actually the ordinance that everyone is so up in the air about, that was last night. Our attorney is trying to be helpful with us, showing us what other cities have done. This is not what this city council has approved, and I agree with you, it has to have a term, it has to have a time limit. I think anyone with rational thinking would think that. This was just a guideline for us to see what statewide people are doing. And it offends me that someone would intentionally put this out on social media as a negative punch to the city of Decatur. I don't care if you punch me as a city councilman, that's fine. But you're now putting a black eye on the city that I love and live in. And that is a problem for me. So what you see here, we're just guidelines, we're just showing us what other folks have done. I think you will see a collective, if there is even an ordinance drafted, that will be specific to this city. And it should be, to Decatur, Alabama, not any other city in the United States of America. It should address our issues and our things here, and I think you'll see that this council do that. So again, if you're gonna come up and talk about this that was put out by social media, that was only a tool from our legal team to help us show what others are doing, then please don't, because I will stop you, because this is not what our ordinance is. Our ordinance has not been drafted yet. This was a draft of other communities in the state of Alabama. So you can bring your thoughts, but please do not base what this council has done on this, because we haven't done any of that. Okay, I think if you look at everyone's copy, it's probably all marked up, which we don't agree with a lot of this wordage. And so it would be a different ordinance that would be constructed by this council. So we can go with that. Let's see, Jenny Coffey? Coffey, C-O-F-F-E-Y?
That's called, Ms. Coffey, did you want to speak?
Thank you.
My name is Jerry Coffey. I live at 28 Harbor View Court, Northeast Decatur. I really do not enjoy doing something like this, but do you realize when we hear from you, we understand you have our best interests at heart, but do you realize that your education information has been severely limited by people who have a vested interest in you being locked up at home with your loved ones or without them, your parents and those who are sick being isolated, dying all alone. How can you put up with this? I'm a health educator. I have stood up here in the city of Decatur once before, got arrested for trying to educate the public about genetically engineered foods. We hardly have real food anymore. That's the basis of most of our health problems. I still ride a bike every day. I go jogging on other days. I'm 80 years old. If people learn how to take care of themselves, they wouldn't have all these problems. I have a daughter-in-law who's a nurse, a doctor, a PhD. She's worked on the SARS vaccine. She's traveled to foreign countries. She knows most of this is a farce. But our doctors, our nurses, our hospitals are forced to put down death by coronavirus, or they are going to be disciplined, fired, dropped, isolated. I would like to get all of your email addresses and send you supporting evidence for everything I'm saying. In fact, because those face masks are causing more diseases, they're not protecting anybody, particularly the one wearing them. But we're not allowed to get any of this information. To give you an example of them saying everybody who dies, young or old, and most of those, all started in Italy, and Italy has the longest aging population, and they're dying. They would have died anyway. More people have died of the flu last year than have died of this virus. Do you hear anything about that?
Your 3 minutes are up, I'm sorry. Thank you, though, for your comments. Now we have, I can read Todd. I can't, Higging, the last name I cannot read. Todd, H-I-N-G, that's all I can make out of the last name. Todd? Todd? Maybe it's Ted.
Is it the
Could
top
be.
of the
It looks
list?
like T-O-D-D, but maybe it's Ted.
Is it
Ted?
the top of the one list?
No, ma'am, it's the third on one list right here.
I don't know who that would be.
No,
That is not me.
That's not you.
Ted, that could be you. We put you on the second list too, remember? But
Okay,
Okay. Yes, sir, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
all right. Well, I was here yesterday and picked on masks. I won't repeat myself. But since then, I've noticed that apparently there's a 71-year-old Alabama law that prohibits going masked in public. And then my question for the council would be, are you authorized and do you have a legal opinion that says that you can in fact override a state law? That was my statement. My question to you.
There's also along the Alabama books that you wear a mask due to the outbreak of TB that is still in the books too, so that you can wear face coverings. Unfortunately, the Alabama Constitution is in need of some work.
Then maybe you need to get that fixed up first.
I would love that to be fixed in Montgomery. Unfortunately, I'm not in Montgomery. I wish we had some representatives that would do that.
All right, well, have you taken occasion to do that?
To go down to Montgomery?
No, to talk to the reps that have purview there.
I'm sorry.
We have reps locally, you can talk to them, right, our rep.
They called me today, so yes, sir, I spoke to all of them.
And so we're gonna get that all sorted out.
I'd love for them to get it sorted out, yes, sir, thank you. Now we have Anthony Merks, M-U-R-C-K, or Murky. Again, the last name I can't make out. I have Anthony. Okay, great. Anthony, thank you.
Anthony Marks, 1921 Old Moulton Road. I'd listened to you earlier, man. You were saying that y'all wasn't wanting to enforce the law as far as, what would you mean by that? I mean, are y'all wanting to make this mandated by, as in, make it a fine for us not to wear a mask? Or also for my business, that I'm supposed to enforce that or not? Which way
Well,
y'all
actually,
want?
we have nothing, we have provided nothing as a council, as an ordinance yet. Again, that was just a sample of other ordinances, so we have not put something together.
When would that be? When are y'all gonna?
We're gonna try and do that tonight, but we're trying to be fair and let people speak, but we can't really do our work until that's done.
So, that'll be, you'll come back tomorrow and vote on it?
No, we're gonna stay tonight until council has to leave. We'll hear the public, that's our job. But we can't do our job until we hear the public, so,
I understand.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Chris Humphreys?
My question was on the time limit.
Okay. Yes, sir. Sarah Minnan? M-I-N-N-O-N, thank you.
My name is Sarah Menon. I live at 1817 Katy Circle, Northwest Hartselle, Alabama. I have a business in the city of Decatur. I would like to read a statement by a friend of mine who lives at 2202 Cameron Street, Southwest Decatur. And it is the opinion and sentiments of a great deal of our circle of friends and community that we are in. What is wrong with the mandate to wear a mask? I will answer this in 3 points that have been heavy on my mind for the last few months. I have been directly asked these questions and heard the following statements. Why can't you just comply and wear a mask? What harm is it for you to wear a mask? It is just the loving thing to do, to wear a mask. You show love to your neighbor by wearing a mask. Why can't I support a city ordinance requiring masks? I will answer this using 3 essential points. Freedom is beautiful, freedom is costly, freedom is risky. Something is particularly unsettling about this ordinance. This hot topic of mask mandates has struck a chord with people like me for a reason. As government officials, you have asserted your position in the council meeting last night that citizens appreciate other city ordinances like dogs on a leash, no smoking in public places, and no loud radios and the like. So why wouldn't citizens support a mask ordinance as well? I will make the point that the mask ordinance is different entirely from those ordinances in this one vital way. A mask is required to be put on my person and to be forced to do so under penalties or fines. The city of Decatur is, for the most part, made up of law-abiding citizens who work hard, pay taxes, and mind their own business. Why is it then that we, the people, need our city council to mandate masks for law-abiding people? Do you really want a society, our home city, to have its citizens calling the police on one another over not wearing a mask? If you put laws in place, then you have to enforce them. I am sure that the police and 911 dispatchers have bigger problems to address than petty neighbor complaints. Further, if I am cited for not wearing a mask, then the person accusing me must show up to court as well. Isn't that the correct and proper? To have neighbors, family, and friends calling the police on one another makes us no different than fascist World War II Germany or Soviet Russia. Is this the kind of city where you want to live? I don't want to live in such a place. My family has lived in Decatur for more than 5 generations. Instead of the government making mandates for free, competent people, how about let individuals, businesses, and organizations make the determination? If Costco or my church wants to mandate masks, which both of them do, then I will make other arrangements for what I need to do. Obviously, the people in leadership of those organizations and businesses recognize that the situation is too risky to let competent people decide for themselves, so they decided that for them. That's okay. They are a business or organization, and they are free to make rules for their place of business or organization. I am free to go there or to not go there because of their decision. The government, however, is not free to make mandates for free people without the consent of the people. I can research and make my own decisions. I don't need someone mandating to me what I should and shouldn't do. I can listen to experts, read data, and draw my own conclusions. Those abilities come from literacy and education.
Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry, the timer has gone off here for minutes. Thank you. We have Lynn Thompson. Lynn Thompson. My name is Lynn Thompson. I live at 638 County Road, 362 in Trinity. I shop here. I own 2 small businesses in Trinity, and I do business here in Decatur. I exchange and trade with you all, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. There is an ever-moving target for us in this pandemic. First, we're safer at home. We have to flatten the curve, right? That's what was said. Next, we have to wear masks. What if that doesn't work? Then what's next? If you follow this to the logical conclusion, where does it end? When do you all stop deciding what we have to do for our own personal safety and health? At what point? I don't think that any of us will ever be 100% safe from any virus. It is not possible. Liberty and freedom is risky. Do small businesses here need anything else to hurt their ability to earn a living after these last few months? Because I am not shopping here if I have to wear a mask. I will go somewhere else, or I will order it online. I simply will not do it. And by the way, what are the exceptions to the mask wearing rule? If you go into a restaurant, are you going to take your mask off to eat? If we believe everything the hashtag lamestream media says, then your asymptomatic virus will be circulating through the air conditioning system and kill people.
like you could be doing right now since you all are not wearing masks. Isn't it ridiculous? If we pull on the strings of the exceptions, it makes no sense. Our immune systems are designed to be challenged. When you and I meet, we exchange bacteria and viruses and gases, and that's the way we stay healthy. Isolating people and taking away those challenges hurt our opportunity to have herd immunity. I'm just asking you, at what point does this city stop deciding how to keep people 100% safe? Because it's impossible. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Dwight Gardner. Dwight? Dwight? Okay, we'll come back. Brian Vincent, I believe. I think it's Brian, B-R-I-O-I-N. Okay.
Brian Rochelle.
Okay. Come on up, sir, right here too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Rochelle. I have been a citizen of the city of Decatur my whole life for the past 31 years. And there's a couple simple statistics, I think, that far more than I could elucidate the
Could you give your address, please? I'm sorry, Mr. Kirby.
402 Church Street
Thank you.
Northeast.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
That's fine. And as I was saying, there are two statistics I think that that successfully argue more than I ever could for the wearing of masks, and that is the amount of dead, 900 in the state of Alabama alone, over 128,000 in the United States. You could argue that more people have died of the flu, but you also have to keep in mind that 128,000 was just in the past few months. We've lost less people in World War I over the span of a few years than we have just in the span of a few months to this disease. I've heard a lot of talk about personal freedom. I haven't heard a lot of talk about personal responsibility. Wearing a mask doesn't just protect yourself, it protects others, it protects your community, and protects their right to live without fear that their neighbors could unwittingly infect them. And I think it's important that the city of Decatur do everything it can within its power to ensure the safety of its citizens. I yield the rest of my time.
Thanks, sir. Eric, E-S-T-R-A-C-H, I'm sorry. Yes, sir, come on in, Eric, I'm sorry for the name, yes, sir, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a little intimidating.
I'm sorry.
My name is Eric Estrada. Recently became a resident of Decatur. The last couple months, live at 2807 Lexington Drive. I'm here to represent the underrepresentative. I got a child with autism. He's biologically not mine. He's 2 years old. I decided to adopt him. He's my child, my son. I can't keep a mask on him, regardless, no matter what, no matter where we go. His extreme sensitivity is to materials, how his touch, his feelings. He can only wear a certain type of clothes, certain type of cloths, so keeping a mask on him is almost impossible. And from my understanding is there's some sort of punishment for not being able to keep a mask on a person or a child. How can that be enforced on a 2-year-old who can't keep it on but through no fault of his own? Another issue is if you wear a mask, for those of us that carry concealed weapons, if I'm not mistaken, a mask prevents you from carrying a concealed weapon. Sir, am I right or am I wrong?
There's an exception, but you're absolutely correct. That's what the law says.
Okay, so how am I supposed to be able to protect myself should something happen?
I told him that's exactly correct what the law says, but there's an exception under this order.
Okay. I was unaware of that. I apologize for that. So, I mean, everyone here has got their own rights, their own beliefs as to why they want to come and argue and state their argument. But in the end, it comes down to personal responsibility. If it's as contagious and as deadly as it is, why are medical personnel working in the hospital not wearing hazmat suits with individualized oxygen tanks? I mean, I was just there yesterday. They're laying off people because there isn't enough stuff going on there. 2 appointments, went in there, got x-rays, lab work, went and saw a doctor, went into the ER. They laugh about the mask. They're really not wearing it. If they wear it, it's not proper. Is it really gonna stop it? Is sweat, I just touched this board. How many other people have touched this board before me? Has it been sanitized? So, I mean, where does it stop? We need to stop being the beacon of hysteria and be the beacon of common sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have, let's see, done. Let's see, Lynn Thompson. I think Lynn's already gone. Was she on another sheet? Lynn, have you gone yet? Okay, that's what I thought. I'm not sure. We have different sheets. Anna Bentley. Anna Bentley. Thank you, Ms. Bentley. And if you'll give us your address, please.
I am Anna Bentley, and I live at 1201 Hanging Moss Court, Decatur. And we recently moved here from Huntsville. We bought a house here in October and just sold our house today in Huntsville. So we're now Decatur residents. I just want to say that I respect authority, and I want to follow the rules. But with the coronavirus having a 99% survival rate, wearing a mask is not necessary. When I went to Kroger recently, I was shopping and I heard an older man yelling at a lady for not having a mask on. And I was one aisle over, and sure enough, he came down my aisle. And honestly, I was scared to death, and sure enough, he said something to me. So wearing a mask instills fear, and it also gives people a false sense of security. So what I will choose to do, I want to follow the rules, but I will choose to shop in another county to buy my groceries. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Jeff Bentley. Jeff Bentley. Okay. All righty. Gosh, I'll have to get some help on that one. Nikki. Gosh, I can't. Greer, maybe. Nikki. No Nikki. No one. Nikki. Okay. Eric, you've already gone. Anthony Merkles, you've already gone, I believe. Connie, is there a Connie? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to speak? Okay, very good. Chris Morris. Okay, very good. Let's see. Gosh, I've got a Teresa Montgomery, I believe. Teresa Montgomery. Okay, doesn't want to speak. All right. Paul, gosh, starts with an S, last name. I can't. Yes, Paul, would you like to speak? Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
I wasn't going to speak, but I guess I will.
Oh, you can, or doesn't matter. It's up to you, sir.
So I won't even burden everybody with the whole talk about the unconstitutionality of it. I know at this level of government, it pretty much falls on deaf ears. But I could talk about that at length alone. The one thing, I wasn't here for the meeting yesterday, but I'm wondering if you've considered the liability that you're bringing upon the city and the taxpayers with this. There's already been incidences, as many people have already attested to, where this does in fact lower your SpO2 levels and the dangers that can come from breathing in your CO2. And particularly now as we face the Alabama summers with 100-degree heat that we all know is coming. And when people, the very likelihood that there will be incidences of people falling, passing out, sort of those things, and this is going to induce a lot more of that. And I would argue all day long, and in fact, I spoke with an attorney yesterday who said that he's actually looking forward to the lawsuits that will be coming when people do start to become injured, and that the city will be liable for that. So I'm wondering if that has been a conversation or something that you've considered because I have to believe that there's an undue risk upon the city and the taxpayers from the liability when these injuries do take place. That said, the only thing I'll say is, I'm a big believer that government just seems to lose its place, and some of you guys sitting at the table right now, you know I respect you, and I've liked a lot of the things that you've done, Billy and Charles both, but I think that you guys are just so entirely off base on this one, and I know it's not just you guys, but I just think this is a perfect example of a government that's just lost its place and forgotten the legitimate role of government, especially at the local level, and I just hope that you'll consider that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. And let's see, gosh, I can't even. Lori and Dennis Austin. Lori and Dennis Austin. Lori and Dennis Austin. Maybe they don't want to speak. William Eaton. William Eaton.
I yield my time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Joe, Zella, Brian, I guess, yeah. I've got a Joe now. No? No one coming in? Larry Ellis? Larry Ellis? I have a Dwight. I'm sorry, I can't make out the last name. Dwight?
Maybe that's it.
I'm sorry? Dwight? Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Dwight Gardner, live at 2006 Woodmead Street, southwest Decatur, Alabama. I wanted to address you, council people, today about the Constitution. In the Constitution, I don't see where the city council has any right to pass any ordinance involving masks. It goes to the state. Whatever's not covered in the federal goes to the state. Now, the governor hasn't required masks to be worn by everybody. And I don't believe y'all can legally declare it to be in the city of Decatur or in its corporate limits. Now, you swore an oath when you got elected to office and became a member of this council that you would uphold and support the Constitution of the United States. When are you going to do that? By taking under advisement that you may do an ordinance that a draft was put out on? You know, this is crazy, people. When you start telling people what they must wear, you're kind of getting into what Hitler done. You're kind of getting into making people do things that they may not disagree with, but they don't want to be told to do it. You know, you can enact speed limits because that's within your realm of power, and driving is a privilege. It's not a privilege to what clothes I wear. It's my right. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If I want to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask. If I don't want to wear a mask, I won't wear a mask. If you pass an ordinance with a fine stipulated other than a recommendation, you will end up with a lawsuit if the Attorney General doesn't do something first. You will end up with it. Now, taxpayer dollars go to a lawsuit. I'm sure the city of Decatur gets sued all the time. But why cause one? Why cause this? If that mask protects you, then it should make no difference to you if I have one on or not. It should make no difference because you're protected. You protected yourself. If I live or die, it shouldn't make any difference to you because it's my life. It's my right. It's just like abortions. You all say, well, that's the right of the woman. Well, it's pure murder, but it's legal. And under the Constitution, it's legal to wear whatever I want to wear, as long as it's not indecent, where I could be violating an indecency law. You know, y'all have no right. If you continue with this, You will find out you have no right.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right. Julie Clausen? Julie Clausen? Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Julie Clausen, 2315 Richmond Street Southwest. I was here yesterday. I do want to say one thing to you, Paige, before I say what my saying is.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing you did say was you said you were very upset that somebody put the ordinance out on social media. I'll tell you why that was put out on social media. It wasn't by me, but I know who put it out there. I was here yesterday. I heard the attorney give you copies of a resolution and an ordinance to consider. It was never said that this is just what other cities do. In fact, I have it right here, and it clearly states, be it ordained by the city council of the city of Decatur, Alabama. How would we have known that this was just guidance he was giving you? It was never stated yesterday. The citizens deserve to see what was being considered. Now you're saying you're going to make up the rules tonight. When do the citizens get to know what that is if they're not here tonight? Most of them didn't even know until it was put out on social media about this meeting tonight. If you really want to have an honest conversation and represent the people who elected you, you tell them what you're planning to do and you let them come and voice their opinions based on what you are proposing to do. I didn't see that happening here.
We haven't proposed an ordinance. The city
But you
council-
plan to vote on it tonight.
No, ma'am. We may not.
You may.
We have nothing to consider as of yet.
But if you do, and you vote on it,
No,
who
I didn't.
gets to voice their opinion? If we don't even know what it says till then.
Well, that is why this council has got to convene. We're allowing the public to speak, to get your thoughts. This council has not brought together an ordinance to vote on as of yet. Yes, we were given this by our attorney that, again, mirrors other cities in the state of Alabama and what they've mandated. This council has not convened on what we would even consider. We may not consider even an ordinance, but we have not been given that opportunity because we've been bombarded with lies, essentially, on social media. And that's what I'm upset about, is I have no problem with letting the public come in and speak. As you said, I think last night you even thanked me for letting the
I
public
did,
speak.
yes, for listening to all of us.
And I appreciate the council members tonight agreeing to let you speak, because I think it's imperative that members of the council listen to the public. But we have nothing to discuss as of yet because we're listening to the public's thoughts on it.
If you have nothing yet to put out, and people are not being able to view this, these are the people who you represent. They vote you in here.
We have nothing to view. I agree with you. That's why it's an ordinance and it has to go out to sit to the public. But we have nothing as of yet to put out for people to consider.
Okay, I'm just asking, are you saying that you will not vote on anything tonight because people haven't got to see it?
Well, I mean, we have to propose an ordinance first, and even if you vote on it tonight, it still has to sit to give plenty of time for the public to look at it.
So if it passes tonight, that doesn't make it effective? Okay.
Herman, are you on the line? Let's let the attorneys.
Okay.
I am not an attorney, so we're going to let Herman, or Chip, are you on the line?
Herman's on the line.
Okay, can you answer that question, Herman?
Well, if I understood the question, in order for you to have an ordinance, you have to introduce an ordinance. Then, if you choose to have what's called immediate consideration, then you could go ahead and consider that ordinance. But an ordinance has to be introduced first before it can be considered. So it's difficult to hear at times I hope I'm answering the question. The answer is, there's been no ordinance introduced by this city council.
There's been no
Can you ask him about once it's introduced, how long, what happens? Does it take effect?
I can help if you don't mind. The way he answered you, it will take immediate consideration, which is a whole separate vote. And I'd be a little suspicious the immediate consideration won't be granted. But if it doesn't get immediate consideration, it has to sit until the next business meeting to be voted on.
Okay, that answers it. Well, I will say, I was active on social media today. I got people gathered here because I felt you should listen from people. I emailed you all today a couple different times. There was a video of a doctor who deals with pandemics talking about how we can get over this. She has inside information. You guys said you hadn't heard anything from the other side. She spoke that. She spoke about what I spoke about yesterday. My body wants to fight off a virus by being exposed, not by being covered up where it shuts down. And I don't know if any of you read it. I know that a few of you did because I got responses on it. I also had a petition out there. People opposed. It's over 400 people. I sent you a link to that. You can read the comments. I have a written copy here. You can read them. You need to listen to the people that you are going to impose this on because they're the ones who should have the say on what they want. You're supposed to represent us. That's all I have.
And that's what we're allowing. Let's see, next we have Luke Moons. Mooney, sorry. Luke. Okay. Adrian Baker. Adrian? Okay, great. Thank you.
My name's Adrian Baker, 2202 Cameron Street, Southwest Decatur, 35603. Appreciate your time and ask you to consider the ramifications of any potential city mandate, be it accepted and fully thrashed out or not. In this, just to hear about that this might be a potential mandate, I have concerns about it because just the thought of neighbors calling the police on neighbors. There'll be strangers calling the police on people as they see them drive down the road. Somebody out on Danville Road playing at the driving range, somebody sees them and goes, oh, they're not wearing a mask. And are we going to expect the police to come out and do that kind of thing there? Can it go that far? That's the thing I want you to consider, what this means and what it could be for well-intentioned people who decide they're going to do that to their neighbors and even strangers they don't know. So when police show up for a citation, the accuser then most likely has already gone on their merry way, driven down the road, they made their phone call and they're gone. Is this what we want as a society of grown, free, and educated people? Relationships have already been strained in all of this. Relationships will be harmed irreparably when a family member finds out a loved one has called the police on them for what amounts to a citation about not obeying the law, a city ordinance. That's what we're talking about could be in play here, so that's why I bring these. If there are 119,700 people or thereabouts in Morgan County and about 773 cases without many deaths, a potential citywide mask ordinance that we're talking about is you're talking about 6/100ths of 1% when you do that. That's 6/100ths of 1% is what we're talking about. Not that those people aren't valuable, but they're and precious before God. It is. We have got to find a balance in the middle of this. So this should be about businesses deciding what will happen with their own establishments. If Target says mask or no service, that's fine. That's their call for their establishment. That can be enforceable at the door. But do not place this burden on our families and neighbors and what it will do to our society and what this will create in our city over what amounts to 6/100ths of 1%. Please let businesses decide what they will do with their establishment. There are two groups of people in this pandemic, the remote and the exposed. The remote carry on working from home while the exposed have to show up and work to get a paycheck. That's a lot of our residents as well, council members. A lot of our folks are service folks that show up at a register that have to be at work to get a paycheck. If they don't work, they don't get paid. A mandatory city mask ordinance keeps engendering a climate of fear that keeps our economy hamstrung. We should be advocating for the barkeep at Chili's, Kroger,
Thank you,
all those
sir.
up and down Bank Street.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Your time is up. We appreciate it. Thank you. And we have Terry White. Terry White, thank you, sir.
Maybe I'll be short.
Sure.
Everybody's already said it. Terry White, 2406 Aldingham Drive, Southwest. The only thing that I would add to what a lot of people talk about is working with Chief Allen. Is this really a law enforcement issue? Do we want more confrontation with law enforcement, with our citizens? Another reason for confrontation, with most of us being honest, hardworking people. I would ask you your 20-year-old son, 19-year-old son, don't want to pay a $500 fine or a $100 fine or whatever it is, and he runs, is that the obligation of the police officer to chase him down? And then if he gets hurt, or the police officer gets hurt? I don't know that that's where we need to go, especially as we've talked about the number of viruses, the number of sick, and the number of deaths. So that's the only thing I would say. Work closely with Chief Allen and see if this is where we really need to be for our law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Griffin, or Mac, I'm sorry, Mac. Mac? Mark, I'm sorry. I had it right the first time.
Members of the council, chairperson, I saw the chief here a little while ago. I'm certainly delighted to be here today and have a chance to discuss with you my feelings about wearing a mask. And I'd like to do that
Mr.
in
Griffin,
part.
Can you give us your address, please? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. That's fine.
3809 High Point Drive, Southwest, Decatur, Alabama.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm going to start with just a little piece from history. In 1918 to 1920, almost 100 years ago exactly, the flu pandemic came in three major waves. The first wave in the U.S., the virus subsided, and Americans were restless to have business reopen and for social life to resume. There was a growing movement to stop wearing masks, which had become ubiquitous, so much so that the Anti-Mask League of 1919 was formed. These were protests from those who thought public health ordinance violated their liberty. The virus came back with a vengeance in the fall and was much deadlier than the first wave, eventually killing more than 675,000 people, Americans, and killing around 100 million of 500 million worldwide before it was over. This was before mass vaccination, before the electron microscope. This is the tragedy of herd immunity and stubborn ignorance. Viruses aren't political. They don't care about your theories. They don't care about speculations or projections. They're unthinking parasites only wanting to replicate and use your body as a host. Wear a mask. Now, I suggest to you that all the data, scientific and empirical and anecdotal data, proves beyond really any doubt that masks do effectively cut back on the spread of the virus. I'd like to close in just saying that I wear my mask not out of fear, because I think that a lot of the fear is driven by people who don't want to be seen with a mask on. I wear it out of respect for you, and I would appreciate it if you would wear a mask out of respect for me. Thank you, City Council.
Thanks, sir. William Lawrence, we have William Lawrence. I'm sorry, we'll not have speaking unless you're at the podium. I'm sorry, we can't have that. William Lawrence, William Lawrence. I'm sorry? He left. He left? Okay. Very good. Abram Baker? Abram Baker, or, that's what I have. Okay, thank you. Phil Wiry, you're just signing up, okay. And that's all we have there. Stephanie, do you have any more emails that you'd like to read?
Do have a few more.
All right, go ahead.
You have to speak up.
I'm sorry, yeah, can't hear you up here. Yes, ma'am,
Without-
thank you.
Without a mask either. Okay, Deanne Neely, she wanted a follow-up and clarification for the matter from the Bank Street merchants.
Okay.
The merchant from Old Milton Road did address the council last night, asking how to enforce such an ordinance. He was told that it would be his responsibility to enforce, just like it is his job to ensure that no one smokes in his business. But she thanks for the clarification in following up on the statement made last night by the councilman. The statement last night were of great concern and were obviously offered out of context. We obviously would prefer to follow the matter of the law and contact the police to assist. That was not clear last night. Forrest Burke from 2320 Red Bank Road. He said plenty of face coverings being worn in Decatur already, but incorrectly. In a survey of 10 Decatur businesses today, 41% of wearers had their mask below their nose. How will the city enforce an ordinance that's so easily subverted? This one is from Tony Martin, 1605 Browning Drive, Southwest. I am very much for the city ordinance requiring everyone to wear a face mask in public places. It has been proven that wearing a face mask can reduce the spread of COVID-19 by as much as 50%. With the dramatic increase in cases and deaths in Morgan County, it is obvious many people have become relaxed and are not using protection. The increase in the number of hospitalizations is proof. Face mask is the #1 way we can reduce these numbers. When you go in stores, many are not wearing face masks. These masks have a twofold purpose: to protect the person wearing them from the virus and also protect others from the person wearing face masks. Since symptoms do not show up for 7 to 14 days, it is critical everyone take these precautions every day. Please pass a city ordinance to require residents to wear a face mask in public places. Require businesses to enforce this policy for customers entering their businesses. Stop the spread of COVID-19 virus. I speak for many of my neighbors who believe the same way I do. This is from Bruce Hartman, 1632 Sherman Street Southeast. He is addressing us tonight as a concerned citizen. He is a concerned citizen with the state of this great nation and our great state and great city. We as a society have always been a diverse society, one that has compassion and cares for the other people around us. When did we as a nation or as a city quit caring or lose our compassion? While I wish that we as a nation had not politicized this terrible disease, it is where we are today. I prefer not to have someone to tell me to wear a mask, but that is not the society that we live in today. If we as individuals could come together as a group and embrace the change that we need to do to defeat this disease, no one would have to mandate that we wear masks. I have heard all the arguments and have weighed both sides of this pandemic. If we are to ever defeat this horrible disease, then we as a nation must come together and do what is right for not only us, but for others as well. Wear the mask so that we can get back to what we have all considered normal over the years. What is the flip side to this if we don't? A new normal that kills thousands of people a day. One of those people saved could be you, your wife, your husband, your mom, your dad, or even your grandparents. When death of a loved one occurs due to this disease, you will be full of regret and say, I wish I had listened to the great physicians. We have a finite amount of time here on earth, and God ultimately decides when our time has come, but He gave us the ability to think and reason. He gave us the ability to make choices. I fully support whatever the decision may be concerning the mask. If a mask will prevent the horrors of death to a family member or a friend, then by all means, I support the ordinance for a mask. Thank you for your time and effort and everything you do to protect us. This next one is a couple of questions. It's from a Gina Lance. She's a county resident, but she has a Decatur business license. You want me to read it as well?
You can ask the questions. I don't know that we can answer them, but.
Referencing the draft of the ordinance that was released to the news, if you decide on the mask ordinance, will you set it to 30-day period, 45-day period, etc., then revisit or reevaluate, or will you leave it as the draft was written, because it was written as indefinitely? Did you see the latest on ADHP website where Morgan County was now at moderate risk and not high and not very high, updated around 4 p.m. today? Will you take that into consideration before jumping the gun with the ordinance? That seems to be all the ones that I have.
I just had one email today. It was from a Tracy Erkland, excuse me. And she asked that her address not be given, so I'm just going to kind of give a crux of what she said. She just says that she suffers from 2 heart diseases, asthma, and COPD, and she's diabetic, and she just simply asked that we implement the mask order. She says that she doesn't prefer to wear a mask, but she does this out of respect for others around her. She says it's difficult for her to wear it, but she chooses to wear it for the people who are around her.
do you have any more? Charles, do you have any? I have tons that I can read, but I won't because the majority are in favor of it. But Christie or Mr. Ard?
No, most of those have been covered because I received those as well.
Mr. Ard?
I mean, I have a lot more as well, but I think they're either for it or against it.
Mr. Ard?
No, I think everything has been covered.
Okay. And I'll give one.
Ms. Beebe, I
Yes.
did make some notes, and I do want to comment on some of them.
Sure.
But I want to say the first thing that's on a lot of people's minds, and just get it out of the way. In no way will I support an ordinance that has no sundown to it. It has to have an end date, period, okay? When the pandemic's gone, the ordinance needs to be gone. Now, that being said, I want to talk about some other things. I made notes, and they're not always going to be in sequence, okay?
Before you leave that point, I agree with that there needs to be an end date that can be extended if need be, but I am not in favor of doing something that's indefinite.
And I would be interested in hearing from the council what that date might be, okay? But I did hear a lot about fear today, and we heard a lot about fear yesterday. And let me point out one case. One of the speakers yesterday already had a confrontation at another building indicator, a public building, and had a confrontation in employees' face, exposing those employees because that person chose not to wear a mask. So we can say people should have the right not to wear a mask, but we already have an example of one of the people who made that case already having a confrontation with an employee who could be at risk, okay? So I want to make that case. Fear is driving a lot of this issue, and that was mentioned by several of the speakers, fear. Everybody's afraid of what we'll do, and fear is guiding things. Just a few short years ago, someone barreled into a pizza place, I believe it was in Virginia, based upon something they'd read on social media, and they were there with an automatic weapon to free the slaves that Hillary Clinton was keeping, okay? And this is the kind of fear that social media festers. It just festers and festers on the scene because there's nothing that sorts out and validates facts on social media, okay? So I want to talk about that fear and what we're trying to do. I've heard the question, masks and what types. I do have an N95 mask in my vehicle. But my wearing a mask, and hopefully you're wearing a mask, is about spit splatter, essentially. That is the number one fear of transmission of this disease. And I wear my mask anytime I'm outside of my social distancing 6 feet away from anybody. If I get up and move from here, my mask goes on. If I'm going to be in close contact with other people, I'm going to put my N95 mask on. And I do it not just for my protection, I do it for everybody's protection. If everybody in this room would look to your left and look at the person to your left, then look to your right and look at the person to your right. If you had a chance to wear your mask and you could save that person's life, would you wear that mask, or do you want to insist on the absolute freedom to not wear that mask knowing that person will die? That's the question I would ask, okay? And therefore, do we ask the question, do we have the freedom to kill people? Okay?
We listen to the public. Mr. Kirby has his moment as well.
We have been given several examples of something so literal, particularly with bizarre exceptions to the rule as measuring the rule. And most of those bizarre exceptions will never happen. I am for someone who has a special medical condition or circumstance being given a permit to not wear their mask. I'm all for that. There's been a lot of implication that our information and what we're getting medically is wrong. Most of the negative information on this issue is coming from what I call fringe medical groups, okay? The state of Alabama and its medical authority has indicated that we do have the authority to regulate this issue, and a mask is not clothing. It's personal protection equipment. I don't know about the 71-year-old state law mask, but that's a clothing law. That's not a personal protection law. Leading disease experts say wear your mask, period. Leading disease experts. These are the experts that we're expected to listen to, not social media. Any rules have penalties for non-compliance. If you get in your car and drive drunk, there is a penalty, and the state constitution allows communities to put those penalties in place. There have been rules on tuberculosis. There have been rules on drunk driving. There have been rules on inoculations and penalties for failure to perform those things. Everywhere I go, When I'm going to be in the presence of other people, I wear my mask unless I'm outside 6 foot of others. Most have argued this rule, as I said, based on rare exceptions to the rules and not the actual rule itself. What about the liability the city has for the failure to act? If we allow people to die and people cited that we could have controlled this, do we get sued for not saving that life? The state has said we have the authority. We've also had people argue the right to wear no mask equates to the right to leave instead of being in somebody's presence. I mentioned that case a while ago. You do not have the right to not wear a mask in a building where somebody says you got to have a mask on to enter this building. That means you have the right to not wear the mask and leave. That's what your right is. Your rights end where the next person's nose begins. Without rules, business owners will not even report people. And I cite an example, handicap parking. Every time I find a vehicle in a handicap parking space and it doesn't have a handicap tag, I turn it in. And I found many business owners afraid to actually call the police and remove that person themselves because they don't want to lose customers. And I ask you again the question, how many deaths are acceptable to exercise those freedoms? Is it 1 death? Is it 5 deaths? Is it 10 deaths? Okay, if you accept 10 deaths, how long is it till we get to 100, to 1,000? We're trying to stem a pandemic here, and I don't know what will pass. We might pass nothing, but we cannot not consider it just because people become comfortable with convenience and the country that exhibits the most free nation in the world and freedoms. We're not trying to take people's freedom away. We're trying to say this is a temporary measure to protect public health from a killer, and that killer's name is COVID-19.
We're not going to open it up to questions right now. Anyone else on the council would like to speak? Mr. Ard, Mrs. Hill?
Yes, I would like to say something.
Go ahead.
The only thing that I can really support at this time is something that's going to be around city employees, city property, and things that we can affect. What I have seen as it relates in this ordinance to requiring people and businesses to do these things, that I'm not for. I think that we should be requiring city employees. I think that anyone who enters a city building or anyone who is in a city park should be wearing a mask. We have every right to do that. The others, I'm a little less convinced that we have the right to tell people that.
Chuck, question for you. If somebody's in the park by themselves, do they need to wear their mask?
I'm sorry, Charles, would you repeat that?
If someone is in the park by themselves, say on the walking trail, do you think they need to wear their mask?
No, I was meaning as a group gathering. I don't mean as individuals.
Thank you.
Chuck, this is Tab. Thank you for what you just shared. Today, during Governor Ivey's press conference, she said that when you're in public, for goodness sake, wear a mask. Then Governor Ivey went on and she added that she could order residents to wear a mask, but it would be next to impossible to enforce. She said, but you shouldn't have to order someone to do what's in your best interest. And I think that's what we introduced last night. And trying to enforce wearing masks by an ordinance in our municipality is not where we want to go. And I believe that probably the most council members that are in attendance tonight have received messages from residents that have explained that. Ben, on the other hand, we've received messages from residents that are wanting that safety, but to mandate things as a government, we want to steer clear of that, and we put together through our legal department a very nice resolution last night, and we want to trust that that's going to head in the right direction, and give it a couple of weeks for it to happen, and let's see what happens to our numbers. If not, then let's come back and make some adjustments there. And the same thing, we see a lot of respect in our municipal building and facilities, and I trust that it will continue to happen at the same rate.
Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You talked about the resolution voted on last night, and the resolution has no requirement for obedience. So do you expect that to have a positive effect?
Well, I've talked to a lot of business owners and residents today. I would think that you have done the same. I've never received more emails, Councilman Kirby, in my past 4 years than I have today. And I made it a point to return up until I got on this call, I believe, hopefully every one of them. And I do believe that it will have a positive impact as opposed to mandating something that will require enforcement. Our ability to enforce is just asking, in my opinion, and from the counsel I've received from others, too much. So we can still accomplish the same. Whenever you, on September the 12th, 2001, there was a vote that was taken that changed our city. Now, we definitely needed the tax, but maybe the timing wasn't the best. But at that point, you became very interested in our local government. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And so here we are at another very trying time in our nation. And I would say that I would ask Charles Kirby to go back to September the 12th, 2001, and think about your position then and why you got on board.
My position then was the tax was regressive, especially on the poverty population, and passed without public notice. But let's fast forward to today. Based upon what we've heard from the mayor, which is, I'd say, if we look at an ordinance, whether it's today, tomorrow, or a week, I think it's likely at this point to say the mayor will probably veto it. I'm thinking it's possible that he's got the votes to uphold that veto at this point.
That might be true, but now I listened to the governor's press conference as well today. And in that press conference, it was said that each community is going to do what they feel is best for their community, and that we have the authority to do that. Now, the CDC has requested, and other agencies have requested, that we wear a mask since the beginning of this pandemic. But the fact of the matter is, very simply, is that people have chosen not to. And our numbers are growing here in Morgan County. Even though I heard a statistic earlier that said that we're at moderate or whatever, our numbers are growing in Morgan County. Our responsibility, no, our mandate, is to take care of the public health and well-being of our citizens here. That's what we're mandated to do, not a responsibility. So when we have a situation, as I said last night, we're going down a road that we've never been down before. Any precaution at this particular point is better than no precaution. And if we're simply going to suggest that people do the right thing when it's been suggested all along, and nothing has turned this curve of this pandemic, in the other direction, then I think it's imperative that we do something that's more strenuous. And I understand fully that businesses are maybe in opposition to this, because maybe I misstated last night, because and I am sincere. I think that businesses have an obligation to uphold this. I think that if patrons decide that they don't want to follow the guidelines that the business puts out there, that they should call the police. But I think that that's going to be a rare instance. If a business asks someone not to come in without a mask, I think that most people will honor that. I don't think that we're seeing people honoring the request that's being made by our CDC and by other government and even medical agencies asking that we wear a mask. So I think that we are going to have to go a bit more strenuous.
Ms. Hill, do you have anything?
Yeah, so with regard to what Billy just said, I had 2 personal appointments today, and I've had those appointments over the last 9 months, and I've wore a mask each time. And today, there was a sign on the door that mandated that you had to wear a mask. And so I was in there with a couple of other people that were 6 feet apart that were wearing masks, but there were several that walked in that did not have masks. And the girl at the desk just said, "Here's the mask, we need you to wear this," and they put it on. And so, you know, I want what's best for our city, but I do not feel like that is mandating masks for our citizens. So, you know, I don't want to support the ordinance that's been shared with us to review. I supported the resolution last night to, you know, again, encourage it. And if you're a business owner and you want to say you've got to wear a mask, then, you know, I would support that. And I witnessed it today. So that's how I feel about it.
I would simply say this, that I am still in favor of having an ordinance on the table. I fully understand that the mayor may have veto power in this, and we'll have to see if he does. Because it's not, I don't know that he does, actually, to be quite frank with you. And Herman might want to clarify that, but I don't think he actually does. But the fact of the matter is very simply that if he chooses to veto it, then so be it. I think that the onus falls on him at that particular point, but I do think that an ordinance needs to be prepared, and that we need to vote on an ordinance that's going to require our citizens to adhere to policies that are going to make this community safer.
Madam President, what do you suggest is our next step at this point? Should we go over the proposed ordinance and look at aspects that either?
Well, I want to,
accepted
this is Tab, I'd like to, can I talk about the impact this is having on our businesses?
Well, Mayor, I don't mind if you do that, but until we address the actual thought of an ordinance, I'm not sure what we're really talking about because we have nothing laid out to look at. I mean, you know, it's going to take the council to compose an ordinance. I don't support the ordinance as is that was given to us last night.
And I do not either.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here does. So I think we need to actually come to a ordinance that we would even, as a council, support. I don't think this one is that. But you're welcome to say what you want, but I don't know if I mean.
No, I respect what you're saying. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Would you like us to continue, or would you like to speak?
I'd like for you to continue,
Okay,
please.
great. All right, so council members, like I said, this ordinance has several holes for me that I'm not comfortable with even looking at. So I'll entertain anyone's concerns now. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Here's my question. I am very concerned about something coming down the road. We all are talking about, we're going to enforce this for the health, for your health. What would you do when it comes to a shot? If it comes down to y'all voting on whether it mandates us on a shot, and I'm going to warn you, masks are one thing. When you think you're going to stick a needle in my child, that's when it would go to a place you don't want to go, and how many people will die from it?
Let me say this. I'm with you on that. I mean, when it comes to that, I'm with you. I think that this is a very simple precautionary step that we can take. And I think that if it doesn't work, any precaution is better than no
We
precaution.
cannot sit here and address hypothetical
And that's what
situations. We're
I
not
agree with
addressing
that.
shots.
But
We're addressing personal protection equipment is what
And I
we're
apologize, I
addressing.
shouldn't have responded to that.
That's fine. I never heard the question, sir. I would not support a shot either. I think you've gotten the, no, I'm not supporting anything until we get it on the table. We still have not been given the opportunity to even look at anything. No, we're not taking any more comments right now. Okay, going back to the ordinance, I'll entertain any questions that anyone has about the ordinance that we.
Well, why don't we go page by page, section by section?
Let's do that. Let's do that.
I do have a question. How are you going to define when the pandemic is over? If you're saying you're going to give a time limit to this, what numbers are you going to
Ma'am, I don't know, because we're not given the opportunity to even address it right now, so that will come.
I'm just saying that to help you consider that when you, because both of you, or all of you said you want to put a time limit on it, so we can't just say 30 days. But, I mean, what are
Yeah.
you going to use to classify that this is over? And
That's what we're trying to decide right now. And we're gonna go line for line, and we'll get to that one, and we'll decide at that time. So we will continue.
Council President?
Yes.
Hey, this is Christy here. So I was under the impression that we were voting on the proposed ordinance that was presented. And so I would like to make a suggestion that as council members, we review the ordinance, we correspond with Herman and, send him information on what we do like and don't like, and then review it at the next work session.
And I'm okay with that, Christy. I have no problem with that, but I think if we do it publicly, I think that actually gives the public more input than giving it to Herman. I think I can give it to Herman, but I think then we're just stringing out a process, and either we address it or we don't address it. But that's just my feelings, and other council members can weigh in on that.
Christie, if I may.
Well, I'm not saying that I don't want public input. I've shared what was proposed with people who have asked for it. I reviewed it. I want other people to see what was proposed. So again, we have a process for that. Once it comes out again, then we can share it with the general public, and there's a time frame for everyone to review it.
Christie?
And for us to have public discussion again.
Christie, with all due respect, much like our budget, when we are in front of each other and we hear what proposals or objection each person has, it can alter how we personally see each one of those items. We should be going over this as a body so that we can hear what each person's perspective on the portions of this are.
And I don't mind that. I think we need to schedule a specific work session for it, because I was under the impression, and so was Mr. Ard, because we're not there, that this was a plan B in case we needed this meeting to vote on it. So we both had different things already lined up. And I'm not saying I don't want to give time to the matter in this situation, but I think we need to make sure we're all available to be, present or by phone to go over it and have time to commit to that.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, like I said, I had not seen this paper until last night when they passed it out. I didn't read it until this morning. And mine is all marked up with things
So let's
that I
have a little more
don't
time
agree
to
with.
review it.
And let me say this, my position is the same as it was last night. I think that we're on a running clock. I think that no matter if we made a decision tonight or tomorrow, we're on a running clock. And every second that we let we let go by, we are, what?
Okay. We're not gonna have
Let me
discussion.
finish.
Go
I
ahead,
think we're on a
Mr.
running clock, before I was interrupted. I think that we're on a running clock, that the numbers are still going up. I think that it's important that we address this soon, but I do also think that it's important, Christy, that if you haven't had an opportunity to read this document, that we give you an opportunity to read that. I read mine last night and went through it and started marking it up. But I think that we have to do this, if we're gonna do anything, we have to address this sooner versus later. And I think that the sooner we do it, the better off our citizens are gonna be. That's my personal perspective.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at
But I don't
all.
have a problem with you reviewing it and us coming back together. I'd rather not do that, but if that's something that you and Chuck need to do, then I don't have, I will not oppose that. I'll say that.
I reviewed it last night, and I reviewed it again today, but, that's a day and a half, and, I'd like to be able to gather more thoughts and have conversation, just like what Charles was talking about. But I was under the impression that this was a quick, we're going to either vote on it or not vote on it. And I would like for us to have some more time to discuss it as a body at a work session. And if that's tomorrow or Thursday, I can make time for that. But I had shared with Paige and Herman and Stacy that I already had something on my calendar tonight. So I said I'll be as flexible as I can to participate, to vote on it. But I definitely would appreciate the time, and I can't speak for everyone else, but I would think that, if we had a little more time to review it and gather more questions and hear from the public even more, and we can discuss it more tomorrow or Thursday.
I'm not opposed to
So
that, and I'm not sure,
Yeah,
I'm not sure, one moment, please, sir. I'm not quite sure where you got there would be a vote now if.
I never understood that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't know that we were gonna get a proposed ordinance, so, I never said that, and, so I'm not quite sure where that happened. I'm with Billy, I don't.
Well, I'm not the only one that thinks that, so regardless, there was misinformation or misinformed. I mean, I think if I would have known it was going to be a 2-hour discussion, I would have said, no, I'm not available for Tuesday night, but I was under the impression it was a vote on that ordinance, and I thought that's too quick to make a decision on something like that. So, maybe I'm misinformed, and
I
that's
didn't have an
okay.
ordinance to look at when the meeting was called, so I didn't know, I had no
Nor
ordinance
did
to look
I,
at.
and that's why I asked for it to be sent to me.
Yeah,
So thank y'all. Hey, this is Tab. One last thing, and I'm gonna try to be quiet. Great discussion, and thank y'all. We're on, it's basically Wednesday, and we're fixing to go into a holiday weekend. Let's really get some good information and look at this next week and see what the resolution that's in place and how well our residents will respond to that as we look at next week, and not trying to do something this week and squeeze things. My inbox can't handle it.
I would,
Madam President, I'd like to say one more thing if I could.
Sure, Chuck. Yes, sir?
I'm a small business,
Well,
and
break-
this morning this morning, as a small business owner, I put a sign up that said, the Decatur City Council strongly encourages the use of masks in this building. And believe it or not, nobody came in mad. People did talk about it. Some said, I'm sorry, I'll go get my mask in the car. So it did not pose a problem, and I feel very comfortable with what I've done as a business owner. As I stated earlier, I'm going to have a real problem if the ordinance requires people to wear masks in all businesses. I really think the only thing that we can affect are city buildings.
I'll say this, Chuck. I appreciate the position that you took, but not every business is going to take that position. And I think that it's got to be across the board if we're going to have impact and we're going to turn the numbers back and turn this pandemic back. I think that it's got to be across the board. I think that what you've done is admirable, and all business should do that, but I don't think everybody's going to do that.
So I'm looking for direction on, go ahead, I'm sorry, Chuck.
No, I hear Mr. Jackson, and I think he's probably right.
Okay, well, looking for direction on the council, do you want to, I would prefer to get out what anybody wants to get out tonight as far as council members on what you want on, if there is a proposed ordinance. If we're not gonna propose an ordinance, then.
I don't want to wait till next week. And again, I would rather get it out tonight, but like I said, I do think that if they've not looked at it this way, that they've not taken the opportunity to look at it, but I don't want to wait till next week. I really don't.
So after tonight, when is our next opportunity?
Look, I am good with tomorrow, Thursday. I'm good with whenever you guys decide. I'll make myself available.
I guess we need to hear from Chuck and
By
Chris.
law, it does require 24-hour notice, thank you.
This is true.
So, we would have
I
to do
mean,
that.
we would do 24 hours from me. We could do 7 o'clock tomorrow for all I care. I don't care, but I think that we need to address this. I do.
All right, well, let's just go ahead and do this online so everybody can hear. So when can all council members meet without any problems? Mr.
Thursday.
Arden,
How was Thursday?
I'm good Thursday. I'll schedule around it, whatever you guys do.
8 in the morning to 5 at night?
So Thursday's going to be another September 12th. That people are going to be vacationing, getting ready for the 4th. Please don't do that.
Mayor, I don't think.
What about the
it's-
7th?
I don't think it's a vote. I think it's just trying to, if there's an ordinance that could be compiled. I mean, and again, I'm certainly not going to vote a unanimous consent at this point. So,
We're
you
talking
know,
a work session.
Yeah, I mean, it's a work session, they won't have a vote, it's just listening to council members' concerns to put in an ordinance, and I guess to make it known to the public that this ordinance that you see right here is not what you're going to see, if anything, come from the city council. This was just guidelines, so, you know, again, that is up to the council, Mr. R., Mrs. Hill. I think, Mrs. Hill, did you say the 7th?
7th or the 8th?
Mr. R., did you have anything?
Don't we have some other
Oh,
work
we do,
sessions
that's
those
right.
days?
We have those allocation funds, appropriation. those
And I
are-
actually had questions about those. I don't know how we can do appropriation hearings when we haven't been given guidelines in our budget yet, what's going to be proposed.
I propose your question to the CFO, and we can actually push those back if you'd like the allocations request.
Paige?
Yes, I don't know who that was, I'm sorry.
That's
John.
John.
John, okay.
John, I've already canceled the meetings for next week.
Okay.
When the council feels comfortable to discuss, we will schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Well, John, you still there?
Perfect. Yes, sir.
What I think most of us are going to feel more comfortable holding those appropriation hearings when we have some guidelines of what the mayor is going to propose on the budget.
Yes, sir, and we're working on that. You know the challenges we have with revenue. We're trying to pare down the expenses before we address the revenue issues. But we will have that hopefully soon enough so you can address your concerns.
Thank you, John.
I know Chris, you said.
Can we do this before the work session on Monday?
Work session on Monday and Tuesday.
No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I was meaning the discussion on the COVID-19.
Oh, I can do that. I'd rather do it this week, though. That's just my preference.
Christie, can you do it before that meeting?
I can do it. Yeah, I mean, I could do it tomorrow afternoon, like
Tomorrow
between-
afternoon is not enough notice of the meeting, is it?
No, it's 24 hours.
So Thursday afternoon?
I'm good with that. I'll make it.
Okay, Christie, you have
I can
Thursday
go with that.
afternoon. Do you have a time?
I have.
Okay.
After 2:30?
2:30, Mr. Jackson?
Whatever you said, I'll.
I think she said after 2:30, we're going to look at 3 o'clock. Is that what we're going to look at?
Is that fine with you, Mr. Jackson?
That's fine with me.
Charles, can you
Okay.
make 3 o'clock on Thursday?
What time?
Charles, 3 o'clock on Thursday?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Ard?
I don't know. If I do, it'll have to be by phone.
Okay.
All right. And I can make,
Chuck, you want to check your calendar and let us know after
Well,
you get off work
mine's,
today?
Yeah, well, it's not my well, mine is that that's going to be a very busy day at the store.
Work.
And I don't know if I might be able to get in the corner and talk for a little bit, but I can't get away for a couple hours.
What time are you finished? 6?
I'm not finished till 6.
Okay.
okay, what I have is Thursday at 3 o'clock is a majority of the council can make that. And that will be a
Could we
work-
do anything later? Could we do anything later? Like, what if we did like a 5?
What if you
Would
wait?
that be
What
better?
if you wait till next week and not rush this?
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. But I think Billy was saying he'd like to do it this week. I mean, I propose next week, but I'm trying to be flexible as well.
I try to listen to all the council members and get the consensus of the majority, so that is completely up to y'all.
Well, I would say Monday would be my better date.
As much as I dislike
Yeah.
it, I would rather that Mr. Ard had a chance to be present if he could.
Mr. Jackson?
I'll yield to whatever they say, but I would still prefer to do it this week. Sooner the better.
Christie, are you good with Monday?
Yes.
And would y'all like to do a work session before the meeting?
Yes.
And how long would you like to address for that time-wise? The meeting is at 6 PM,
At the pre,
5:30 pre-meeting. So I'm looking for a time for
Let's
Monday.
start at 4. Let's start at 4.
4. I agree.
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Kirby, is 4
Do
acceptable?
4 o'clock.
Okay. Stephanie, could you please put that out for notice? Monday at 4 PM will be a work session, which a vote cannot occur in a work session, just for public knowledge, to speak about the ordinance. Then we will go into the 5:30 pre-meeting and the 6 o'clock meeting for that agenda. Thank you. Anything else from council?
I want to thank everybody
Nothing
that showed
from
up and
Christie.
shared their opinions.
Nothing from,
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We set that for 4, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm
Monday
good.
at 4 o'clock. And we will have that here in the chamber. Is that good?
I'm good.
I'm looking for a motion to close.
You got it?
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you.